Texas Lutheran University.
I have a long personal history, personal connection with Hungary. My wife is Hungarian. We lived in Hungary for a number of years in the 1990s, shortly after communism fell. Our first child was born in Budapest, and I wrote a book about the Lutheran Church in Hungary under communism. So I have a long personal connection. I have lots of friends in Hungary. I have professional connections in Hungary. Hungary is a former communist country in Central Europe or East Central Europe that had incorporated into the West. It joined NATO in 1999. It joined the European Union in 2004. And it was a sort of stable democracy. And then in 2010, the Hungarians elected a prime minister, Viktor Orban, who has since then systematically dismantled the democratic institutions in Hungary. And so Hungary is sort of backsliding on democracy. Its relations with the European Union and the United States have become strained. It's moved closer to Russia. One of the things that Viktor Orban did after coming to power in 2010 was to pass a law on religion which restricted in significant ways religious freedom in the country. So after this happened, coupled with the other things that the Orban government was doing, I was distressed and I wrote this letter to the churches in Hungary. And in this letter, it was an open letter to the churches in Hungary. I expressed reservations or concerns about the direction that Hungary was going in politically, and I criticized some of the new laws on religion that the Orban government had passed. And so this letter was published on the webpage of the Lutheran Church in Hungary, and it just oddly went viral. It was all over the place. Apparently at one point the webpage for the Lutheran Church crashed because they were getting so many hits reading this letter. And the next thing that happened, there was an archbishop who joined into the debate and wanted to respond to my letter. Then a former prime minister had to respond to the archbishop who had responded to my letter. And then there was the deputy prime minister who actually wrote a letter to me. So it went viral, and I started getting phone calls here in Hungary and emails. And after that, so it was about two months it was in the news cycle in Hungary, and after that I became a kind of a point person in the U.S. to talk about issues related to religious freedom in Hungary. I started getting calls and people were contacting me, and then I was able to put together a research project, a sabbatical, where I spent a year in Hungary researching the effects of Hungary's religion law on discriminated groups. Well, making predictions is a difficult thing to do. Everyone's trying to do it. I'm not sure I know. I think that the situation in Hungary right now is not really sustainable. I think there are problems with the way that the Orban is running the country. His goal is probably to create a situation where he can stay in power for an extended period of time, sort of like what's happened in Turkey or Russia, kind of managed democracy. I don't know if he'll be able to pull that off because he hasn't done such a good job governing. So I think what's likely, somehow the country's moving to a, maybe not a crisis, but things are coming to a point, or there'll be a turning point, and either some sort of upheaval, and either the country will sort of reject what Orban is doing and maybe sort of move back solidly into the camp of Western democratic nations, or it might slip further to the east to become more closely aligned with Russia. It's hard to know. I think it'll probably be decided maybe within the next 5 years. It also probably depends on what happens in Europe. I mean, there's the Ukraine crisis, there's the Euro crisis, and how those things play out would also, I imagine, have an effect or an impact on how things play out in Hungary.